night. What did you guys make of the extension and just thoughts on that? J-Mo gets paid. Dan mentioned it today that they were actually trying to get this deal done earlier, and it got done this past weekend at like midnight, by the way. So people, you guys know how this is. You can't do nothing. You can't have a social life. J-Mo gets paid at midnight on a Saturday. So,
Birchie, what were you up to around that time?
I was walking out of Tanner's, which is a bar in Appleton, where I've been watching the end of the Boston College Michigan State game with Woj. We departed maybe 45 minutes after Colton did, and I'm walking back, we're several beers deep, and get the notification, and I was like, I don't know if I can find A from H on my keyboard right now. It's gonna be a challenge, but I locked in, I rallied, as we all did.
That's right.
I don't know about you guys. I was really surprised. And I was surprised because of Brad Holmes' comments at the league meetings back in March. Just setting the table for all the extensions the Lions have to get done. And Brad kind of laid the groundwork of we might not be able to afford J-Mo because wide receivers are crazy expensive. And I thought, that comment was intentionally meant to soften the blow, but maybe it was a negotiation tactic. I don't know, putting it out there and letting J-Mo's people know, look, we might not be able to afford you if you're looking for max dollars. And I don't think he got max dollars. I think that's maybe the big takeaway for me. The Lions had 2 years of control. They didn't have to make a move. The money that Williams got on the new end of the deal on average is at the very, very high end of number 2 receivers, up there with the T. Higgins and the Jalen Waddles of the world. But that's 2 years in the future that money kicks in. That means 2 years of inflation. So $27 million now, the cap keeps going up 10% a year. Now you're talking that's $27 million a year for what will, essentially be $32-33 million a year for the guys signing then. So it does end up, I think, looking like or should end up looking like a relative bargain. Assuming that there isn't some kind of off-field issue or injury that, hinders J-Mo a couple years down the road.
Yeah, I'm with you, Justin. It really felt like that was, going back to Holmes' comments in the owners' meetings, it did feel like he was sort of preparing the fan base or whatever just for hey, this could happen. But the receivers are expensive, man. These cost a lot of money, these guys. That's what it felt like to me, at least. So I'm with you there. I think the more you got into the offseason and you hear from John Morton saying, I think this kid's going to have a breakout season. And you see him out there and his route running's improved. He's sinking his hips and getting out of his breaks faster. And he's looking more like an NFL receiver. And I know the numbers weren't great the other day. But just the stuff that you heard all summer, I think is kind of when my mindset started to shift. Maybe they could find a way to get this done. And then you see the way they structured the Kirby deal. And it's they're pretty smart over there in Allen Park. They know what they're doing in the front office. And so, how does it all work when you got Laporta and Branch and Gibbs and Campbell down the road? Sure, that's something to worry about. But the way they set this deal up where the money doesn't really kick in until later, and it's that's going to be a bargain by the time 2027 comes around. That's I thought it was a really good deal for them, a smart way to get in front of it before he does have maybe a breakout year this year. We don't know. But if he were to replicate last year's production or exceed it in 2025 and you don't have a deal done with him, then I think he has a lot more leverage in that conversation. So to do it now before that happens, I think is smart. It's a bit of a bet, but it's a bet on one of your guys that you've known for years and you've watched grow up in your system. And those are the guys that they're always willing to bet on. And that's something that they've proven over the years. And it was really no different with J-Mo.
Yeah, I think they felt better about J-Mo even before camp, Colton. I think camp was an extension of what he had showed them this offseason when he was here before a lot of the coaches. Now it helps that he lives here. This is what he calls home. But Scotty Montgomery was saying today, receivers coach, that J-Mo was back here before even he was this offseason in the building, putting in work. He obviously showed a commitment to the program that maybe they hadn't entirely felt in years past. And then to me, this was an example of both sides kind of doing right by each other. J-Mo doing right by the Lions, and that if he had waited another year or possibly two to test the market and continued his current trajectory, knowing that they wouldn't have been able to afford him. If he had played himself in to wide receiver one money in the NFL, it was simply infeasible to have him on this roster. And the Lions doing right by JMO in that for all of his growth last year, this is still a guy who only has 83 career catches to his name and now has an $83 million contract to show for it. But rewarding him for the growth and the maturity that he showed last season and then into this offseason. And it just felt like the right time for both parties to reach an agreement if they wanted to remain wed, so to speak, because it felt like if it wasn't done now, that these two sides were destined for a divorce just because the math would have necessitated it, or the Lions would have had to divorce from one of those other core pieces that we've referenced. So it was good timing and a show of mutual faith between player and organization.
Let me just throw a little math into this conversation because the Lions did have the 5th-year option with the rookie contract. That was a guaranteed $15.5 million or so for Williams. They'll be able to roll that in. They'll be able to kind of manipulate how the cap plays out for multiple years here. So in reality, the average is a 4-year deal at around $24.5 million. Now you're talking about a contract that's comparable to Michael Pittman, to Deebo Samuel, to Calvin Ridley. If I told you could have JMO for that money, for that caliber player, I think it just makes a lot more sense, makes it even easier to digest as opposed to the very agent driven, I think 3 years, $83 million.
Yeah, well, I think the deal, how it's structured, especially because Brad has been kind of proven he pays guys early, it makes a ton of sense. I think the part where I was a little, and not that Brad, it'd be irresponsible to bank on an unknown entity like Isaac Tesla, but you traded up to get a guy like Isaac Tesla, who now gets probably slotted in at wide receiver 3 for the foreseeable future, which I think he has much higher talent than that. But the deal getting done does not surprise me. And the number in which it got done at does not surprise me. So the fact that JMO's here, you can't find guys that can run like JMO can run. His speed is very rare. So I will give him that. And the money, like you brought up, Justin, it is ridiculous how much receivers. I mean, $24 million for Jameson Williams. He could be a number 1 receiver on other teams, many other teams. So it is a great deal. I do want to get to the Bears game as well. Before I do that, though, we do have to get to a sponsor of the program here. All right. Very proud sponsor of the program, which, by the way, let me change this. Get this. Okay, there you go. Before we get into that, though, I do need to play this. We will see you guys right after the quick break.
Sleeper is the #1 fantasy sports app. It pays to know sports. Pick more or less on top players. Your first pick is on us, so start winning now. Play in Texas, Georgia, Minnesota, and 27 more states. Pick anytime across all sports, pregame or live. Over 10 million players are already on Sleeper. Make your picks count. Score up to 1,000 times your cash. Join today. Get up to $100 credit using the code HMA. Call your shot on Sleeper. Download now.
Well, it's Sleeper Fantasy. The NFL season's here, which means you have now a chance to 1,000x your cash on daily fantasy football. I'm in fantasy football. I've taken an L in every single league I'm in, so don't take advice from me. But you can use Sleeper Fantasy and attempt to, bank on players like C.J. Stroud, Pat Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, Justin Jefferson, etc. Pick on stats for these stars like touchdowns, passing yards, receiving yards, fantasy points, and more for up to 1,000x payout on Sleeper. Get your picks right, and you can win big. Use the promo code HMA for a chance to get up to $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. See Sleeper's terms of use for details. Shout out to Sleeper for sponsoring the program as always.